everybody, and thank you for joining me today. I quite often get asked by people if I do any courses on the basics of Vedic astrology. And whilst I definitely have something like that planned for the future, I've got a couple of other courses going on right now, so I'm not really fully able to do that. So I thought instead I would offer a brief course on some of the basics of Vedic astrology and do some of the things free, such as starting with the planets or the Grahas, and then moving on to the Rashis, and moving on to the Bhavas, and moving on to the houses, just to give people a foundation in the basics, right? So today we're going to start by discussing the planets, also known as the Grahas. And for those of you who are new to Vedic astrology, Grahas may need a little bit of explanation. And for some of you who aren't, it may still need a little bit of explanation. So the word Graha means to seize or to grasp upon, right? So quite literally, what that is meaning to imply is that the planets are forces that seize us, they grab upon us, and they cause us to act in a specific way, right? Good or bad, the planets act upon us and cause us to act in a specific way. As individuals, as we become more aware, we can become less susceptible to those forces, but those are very strong forces, and they're there for a reason, because we have karma that we're here to resolve, and that karma is meant to play itself out through specific actions that we go through as individuals. So today we're just going to touch on a few different things in relation to the Grahas to help us to have an understanding of what the Grahas actually are. And you'll find that you learn so much more about the planets, about the Grahas, if you can relate to them as living, conscious manifestations of the Supreme, of God. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And this is actual text that's taken from Brihat Parashara Hora Shastra that is meant to guide us along the specific lines of understanding the Grahas in that particular manner. You see, if we can understand the Grahas in that specific way, they take on this life, and we understand them as characters in a story. And whose story is that? That story is your story. Okay, so here are some texts from Brihat Parashara Hora Shastra to help us to understand that. And I'm going to kind of take this line by line. And what's really wonderful about sacred texts like this is they give quick, simple phrases that, when expanded upon, really help the individual to integrate a lot of information. So in this particular stanza, it says, "The Supreme Unborn Spirit has had many descents." The Supreme Unborn Spirit. Let's look at that. The Supreme, that divine spirit that is unborn, right? One part of it is not in manifestation, but it has come down in many descents, in many manifestations, right? And that's something that's difficult to grasp upon, because that gives us the concept of something that's here, but what is really here? Right? And is this all some divine play? And that's a pretty interesting concept. So the Supreme Unborn Spirit has had many descents. Janardana, now let's look at that word Janardana. Janardana is a name of Vishnu that comes here and agitates man, right? Causes man to act in a certain way, creates actions in his or her life, in humanity's life. Janardana creates specific events. Let's look at the word, the one who agitates. Well, so basically, if we're not completely in that area of complete peace inside of our psyche, then our consciousness is going to encounter events until we can get into that space, right? So Janardana, in the form of the Grahas, rewards the fruits of the karma of the living beings. For several different lifetimes, we have taken certain actions. And people quite often get caught up in perceiving these actions as somehow being good, or somehow being bad, right, or wrong. And I think you'll get further in terms of understanding the evolution of consciousness if you look at it as incomplete. We have areas that we need to grow. And so until we can become complete, we tend to continue to encounter the fruits of the karma from previous lifetimes. So Janardana, in the form of the Grahas, the planets, rewards the fruit of the karma of the living beings, right? Let's move on to the next slide. Destroying the strength of the Daityas, increasing the strength of the Devas. Let's take that first. The Daityas are the more demonic forces in consciousness, in this realm that we exist in. Demonic has a different concept here. It doesn't necessarily mean evil. It just means driven, more attached to ego, less attached to spirit, right? So destroying the strength of the Daityas, or those who have a grasp or rule by darkness, so to speak. Increasing the strength of the Devas, or the heavenly forces, the light within the individual. So destroying the strength of the darkness, or the Daityas, increasing the strength of the Devas, aiming to establish Dharma. Simple way to understand Dharma, it's the path of righteousness. Some individuals, that path is changing. It shifts from one moment to the next. For some, there's an underlying essence that stays the same. I would say for everybody, there's an underlying essence that stays the same, but the modality can change. And for some people, that modality stays similar throughout existence, right? So destroying the strength of the darkness, increasing the strength of the light, aiming to establish Dharma. The auspicious births proceed regularly from the Grahas. The auspicious births of the divine into humanity, into consciousness, I should say, proceed regularly from the Grahas and then come to the individual so that the individual can connect more to their own inherent divinity. And by that very fact, your birth here on the planet is truly auspicious, just as the auspicious births of the divine through the planets is equally auspicious. So destroying the strength of the dark, increasing the strength of the light, destroying the strength of the Daityas, increasing the strength of the Devas, aiming to establish Dharma. The auspicious births proceed regularly from the Grahas. Okay? Now here we get to the actual incarnations of Vishnu that each planet represents. We're going to expand upon this in some of our future classes. It's a good way to understand the planets, and it'll give you a firm foundation in what each planet represents. But today we're just going to touch on it briefly. So the avatar Rama. So in Vedic mythology, Vishnu had 9 specific manifestations, or 9 specific incarnations, of which we're going to go over. And each of them is related to a planet. The avatar Rama from the sun. From the moon, the Yadu Lord Krishna. Narasimha from Mars. Buddha from Mercury. Vamana from Jupiter. Bhargava or Parashurama from Venus, Kurma from Saturn, from Rahu Sukara, also known as Varaha, and from Ketu the avatar Meena. And all others are also planetary born. So the avatar Rama from the sun, from the moon the Yadu Lord Krishna, Narasimha from Mars, Buddha from Mercury, Vamana from Jupiter, Bhargava or Parashurama from Venus, Kurma from Saturn, from Rahu Sukara, also known as Varaha, and from Ketu the avatar Meena. And all others, that part is very vital. All others, everything else, right? On a certain level, we're planetary born, but also all the other manifestations of God are planetary born. Those with Paramatma. The Atma is the soul of everything. Paramatma is the great soul of everything. Okay, it's an easy way to translate that to give simple understanding. So those with Paramatma as the larger portion are all known as heavenly. Those with Jivatma, so it's important to understand that Atma is in each of those. Jivatma is more of the lower self. Paramatma is the greater soul of everything. Jivatma is the lower, more individualized self of everything. So those with Paramatma are those with Paramatma as the larger portion are all known as heavenly. Those with Jivatma as the larger portion are known as the living beings. The Paramatma portion has gone forth from the Grahas. Those with the greater soul of everything have gone forth from the planets, from the Grahas, the sun, etc., and given birth to Rama, Krishna, and all avatars. Then they are absorbed at their end, after concluding their purifying business. So that's stating that the planets, after the end of this play of consciousness, will be absorbed back into spirit after concluding their business of purifying consciousness, right? The Jiva portion goes forth and is born as humans, etc. That etc. part is very important. Plants, animals, everything here in creation is the Jiva portion. Okay? Similarly, these also then melt at their end back into the imperceptible, from which all comes forth. There's just the Paramatma and the Jivatma. The planets have more Paramatma, and we as individuals have more Jivatma, until we're purified, and then everything is dissolved back into one, and there is no duality. Okay, let's move to our last slide for today. All the Grahas, the sun, etc., Brahma, Shiva, etc., these and others are more Paramatma abundant. So they have more of great spirit in them. It's not that we don't have that too, but the planets, the deities, they all have it in them on a much higher level. So we're here so that we can connect to working through that karma. The planets play out that karma by agitating us as living beings to act in certain ways so that we go through experiences in order to resolve the karma that is in our birth chart. And then when the whole business of each individual here purifying their karma is done, the planets are dissolved back into the imperceptible, and we as individuals are also thus so. So in the next class, we're going to move on to discussing the sun through the particular incarnation that the sun represents, Rama, and equally talking about some other subjects related to the sun to give you a firm grounding and understanding everything that the sun is truly about. That's going to do it for now. Thank you. Bye now.